Hi, I'm Don from DonDronesOn, and welcome to episode 4 of my Q&A series. Today I've got 4 questions, all related to making sure you have the right kind of permission for various drone flights in Canada. Now, if you have a question, drop me an email at dondroneson@gmail.com and you may see it answered in a future video. And hey, if you want to play the home edition of DonDronesOn, just pause the video after each question, yell out your answer, then see if our answers match. Okay, let's start with an easy one. Does a drone pilot, advanced or basic, need to log a flight plan for a mission in uncontrolled airspace in the NAV Canada portal? The answer to this one is short and sweet. No. NAV drone flight authorizations are required only for missions in controlled airspace. Second question. Hello, I watched your video on the Mavic Mini in Canada, but I could not find anything about flying in Class F airspace. Do you have any information on this? Thanks. That's a good question. There are actually 3, I'll call them flavors of Class F airspace, and I have a full video explaining them. There will be a link in the description below, assuming I remember to do that. Class F danger zones are the first kind, and they are miles offshore, so you don't have to worry about them, at least as a drone pilot. Class F advisory zones are warning areas for activities like soaring and parachuting. They're labeled with numbers starting with CYA, A for advisory, and any drone can fly in them as long as you stay clear of whatever's happening in that zone, parachuting or whatever. So then we come to Class F restricted zones, and these are the nasty ones. And they're no-fly zones for all types of drones, including the sub-250-gram drones like the Mini or Mini 2. Absolute no-fly zones. Class F restricted zones have numbers starting with CYR, R for restricted, and exist around places like Parliament Hill, Niagara Falls, and larger prisons. Unless you have permission from the operator or controller of the zone, you cannot fly any size drone in a Class F restricted zone. And the scary part is that the DJI FlySafe map just lists them as warning zones, not restricted zones. This is not correct. They are absolute no-fly zones. So do not trust the DJI app to fully advise you of stuff like this. It does not properly reflect Canadian drone rules. Okay, now we get into the trickier questions. Hi Don, I have a screenshot here from the NavDrone app. This is what appears when I punch in my Mavic 3. But when I change it to the Mini 2, it says I'm allowed to fly. My question is, can I fly the Mavic 3 in a manner that will not interfere with an aircraft operating in the established traffic pattern? This question touches on a lot of things, but we'll start with your actual question first. What does it mean to not interfere with an aircraft operating in the established traffic pattern? Well, this magical phrase comes from Rule 901.47. To understand this, think about planes operating around an airport. They have circulation patterns that they fly in that are part of these so-called established traffic patterns. But these circulation zones are well above the altitude your drone is allowed to be at. But then there are landing and takeoff flight paths, predictably near the end of runways. And by the way, there are similar approach and departure areas around heliports. So this rule basically says, stay out of those normal landing and takeoff flight paths for manned aircraft. It's pretty sensible, and that's all they mean by that rule. Why doesn't NavDrone just come out and say that? Well, don't ask me. But before we move on, you also mentioned that you don't get that warning if you have your drone set to a sub-250-gram drone like a Mini 2. And you're right. And that is, frankly, just scary. For some bizarre reason, NavDrone doesn't seem to even offer a warning for flying in utterly dangerous places. Here I am in front of the Ottawa Airport Control Tower. Green light, check mark, allowed. This actually makes me angry. You should at least get a warning. But if you try the same stunt with Drone Pilot Canada, Yes, it's marked as green because it's a sub 250, you can do it. But you also get a slew of warnings about the certified airport zone, the Class C controlled airspace, as well as the DJI unlocks you would need to do. Plus, you're given plain language instructions to fly with caution, stay below 30 meters, and stay out of the way of all manned aircraft. Forget about the patterns, just stay away from all aircraft. By the way, that 30-meter altitude suggestion in Drone Pilot Canada, it isn't a regulation. It's just my recommendation if you're flying in any of these areas near airports or heliports with a sub 250 gram drone. Stay low. Okay, last question, also related to NavDrone. I'm doing my flight review in a few days, and I'm expected to show up with an approved flight plan courtesy of NavDrone. The problem is that my test will be done at a local community college and is in controlled airspace. I can't get approval through the app or the website with a basic pilot certificate. Is there a workaround for this? Well, you're right. If you have your basic, you can't submit a NavDrone authorization request. So the workaround, if you can call it that, is to ask your flight reviewer to submit the request on your behalf. You should still provide them all the details about the mission as if you were doing it yourself, but they have to do the actual NavDrone submission. I'm not sure if it makes any difference to the approval, but there is an activity type called RPAS Flight Review/Training, and they can pick that. Hope that helps. And by the way, good luck on your flight review. Well, there we have it. 4 tricky questions about getting permission to fly various drone operations in Canada. Send your questions to me at DonDronesOn@gmail.com, and you may see them answered in a future video. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Safe and happy flying.